Welcome back. We're going to continue on with our game development process here using SwiftUI and Swift. As before, all the work we're doing inside our game development, it's going to happen inside our scene files that are over here in our scenes group. Inside that, we're not working with the UI view when we're talking about this, so just a nice little reminder about that. I'm in my main game scene right here. It's the game we've been using with the drop game where we have the lovely blocks or different shapes dropping down and falling. We get a score based on that. And we want to make it so we can end the game, but we can also restart the game and have that be available to us. And so we're going to take a look at what we have to do to make that happen. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off inside our game scene. Again, this is the part that we're actually doing all the work for the game so far. As you can see, I've collapsed all my methods out. When we're doing the idea of ending a game, we have to make sure that we have a way to decide some decision point, like when is it time to end that game? And so if we take a look at touches began, I'll go ahead and open that up and scroll back down here. You can see I've got a lovely little if block inside my touches began. I've made it so I have an array list of blocks that I'm looking with and I'm working when they're out. That's when the game is going to end. So you have to find some point that you're going to end that game. Maybe say, for example, you have a great score or the time has run out or you defeat a certain enemy or you get hit too many times by a certain thing, whatever you're looking for, you identify what that state is. And with our game right now being handled mostly by touch, by user touching the screen, that touches began method is a great spot to handle that for the decision point of where the game itself is executing. So that's why we're placing it here. And so the decision point I'm using like this is just if blocks.count is equal to 0. So if I'm out, then I'm going to end the game. Otherwise, my else I'm going to keep playing the game. So I have an if-else block going on to do that. And so I have the end game call right here. And so the end game originally starts off as a stub, just do private func end game, returns void just to get that going. And then we want to actually then call it right here. So again, just keeping that in mind so we're working with that. So the end game is what we do when we're done. So let's go ahead and take a look at that method really fast. So let's go ahead and open this up and scroll down and we'll bring the font up just a bit here. So inside our end game method, as you can see, it's a private func because we're only using it right here. We first have to declare a transition. A transition is how I make it so I go from here over to here. And in this case, I'm using the skTransition.fade. So the fade method, obviously, it fades in. So I'm using green as a color to use the fade on that because I like green. I think it's a fun color, and it's going to last for 5 seconds. The duration is a time interval based on seconds, so that's what we're using with that. And then I make an end scene as a reference to the other scene we're working with. And so I've already created a file called in-game-scene, and we'll take a look at that. It's another SKScene. We'll go into detail for that. I set in-scene's score value to my current score because I want to transfer information from this window to that other window so I can have it show up. So I'm using a score variable with that. And then I want to set its size to match this current size I'm working with right now. And so that's the width of 300, the height of 400. That's that same value that we saw if I go over here back to my drop game view. And I look at my original width and height values right here with the CG floats of 300 and 400. So those are the values I'm working with to start off, and I continue that on. If we're doing this in a more advanced feature, that would obviously be something I would store inside some reference so I could actually have that and not just have magic numbers that I'm passing right here. But for right now, this is okay. Finally, I set my in-scene scale mode to be .fill, matching what we've been working with for all of our process so far. And then I set self.view. So I'm going to say, hey, game scene, ask yourself who's holding you. Who's your view? Yeah? Okay, cool. Tell them to present this new scene. Oh, so I'm going to tell my drop game view, I'm going to tell it to present this new scene with a transition. So I'm going to set the in-game scene with the transition. So I'm going to tell it to load myself properly. And so that way I can handle that off. And so again, I'm going to say self.view. I use the question mark to unwrap that. So if I don't have something, it would just skip that line of code. But we do have a view because it's what drop game view is holding us. That's who's holding my lovely game. So that's what we're going to start off with. The next thing we have to look at is our in-game scene. So the in-game scene is the actual file we're going to be working with to create the ending of the game. And so you can see right here, it starts off with a standard import sprite kit. It's a class in-game scene. It inherits from SKScene, just like we've been working before. You see that variable we just talked about when we set the score as we created the instance of it. It has a default value of 0 because, again, in Swift, you don't have a default value. You have to have a custom set of inits. And SKScene has a large amount of required inits, so we don't need to worry about for that. So we just use a default value of 0 for the default score. We'll initialize that value every time we when we want to display the screen anyway. So we've got that taken care of. We have 3 methods we're going to be working with inside our in-game scene. We have our didMove, which is the standard method for every single SK scene. That's the thing that, like when you open this window up, what do we do? So that's like our init, or our thing that starts the actual scene itself. Then we have our handle pinch method to do our pinch that we're going to use. So we can introduce how we can use the PinchGestureRecognizer and to make it so we can do that. And then we have our restart method, which will restart the game. I know, so much cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at these methods to see what we're doing and how they'll make that happen. First, we started for our didMove2. And so again, didMove2 is the method we use to start up and load inside our screen. And so let's just shrink the font down here a bit so we can see all our pieces appropriately. And inside our did move too, the first thing we have to do is we want to set our background color to something different. I'm using mine as orange because it's a nice spooky color. It's a great way to have some fun. You can have it so that my background is something that I can see. This is a nice little way so I can have a nice visual representation that the game itself is different from the regular state of playing the game to the in-game scene. So like, oh, I've got something different right here. Then I'm creating 3 different SK label nodes. We used those earlier for the score, but this time instead of holding the score, we're going to have the score that was received when the game was over, as well as a nice little message saying the game is over. And finally, hey, how do you want to restart? Well, we pinch. As you can see, I give them a font color, a font size, and Z position, as well as an XY position using frame.midX and frame.midY. I'm asking it, how big are you? And put that up there in the middle. Okay? Easy peasy stuff. Using string interpolation on scoreNodes.txt, and then the instructions of what to do. Of course, I use the add child node to put those 3 different nodes inside the scene so they can actually be seen in there. And then after that, inside my did move, I add the recognizer so we can actually use this. Now, a pinch gesture recognizer, we're using it when I say a pinch recognizer is a UIPinchGestureRecognizer. I target is self, and its action is using the hashtag selector handle pinch. So this is an Objective-C style piece of code where it uses the hashtag selector. It tells me that, hey, the name of this is going to be handle pinch. So that's what we're doing with that. And so it's just a way to make sure we have that compiled properly. And then again, I tell myself to add the recognizer to this, so it's going to tell the view. So go back, tell the person who's holding the scene, which is the UI view, my drop game view I've been working with the entire time. Use that to actually say, hey, handle this recognizer, because the UI view is one that's actually holding the stuff for, like, you know, tapping and touching, that kind of stuff. So that's where we're going for that. So let's go ahead and let's take a look now at our handle pinch, because that's the method we send here as the selector for that. So we'll open that up. First thing you want to notice is it has an @objc prefix. That @objc is what we say to say, hey, this is an Objective-C style call. This is something you're going to have to use if you want to use the hashtag selector approach when you have to name a method in something when you're using stuff like this with, say, Swift Sprite Kit, where it uses the old version of Swift where it have to use the calls to Objective-C methods. Then based on that, we're going to ask the parameter, hey, is your recognizer, is your state ended? Did I finish pinching? Now with this, because I'm not doing anything specific, it can be a pinch like this, squish, or it can be the outside pinch, but it's just waiting for, did I finish? And then it calls the restart method, so it's going to restart the game. So finally, we'll go ahead and open that up, and inside my restart, this looks an awful lot like the in-game scene because we're doing just a little bit the same basic process, just a little bit backwards. I'm making a new transition. I'm using a fade again with this time purple because I know purple's amazing, and a little bit longer because, hey, this is a different thing. We're restarting the game. Let's give us a little bit more time. Finally, I'm saying restart scene as a game scene. I'm going to open up my original game, and again, use those magic numbers of the width and height we've been specified for the entire time, the 3x400. And then I set the fill again, and then again I tell my view to present this scene, which scene? The restart scene with this new purple transition. And so that way we can have this build and run and go from there, and that's what we're actually working so we can have this happen. So let's go ahead and give a quick little demo of this. I'll hit play, start my app, and bring it over here. We've got my score. I'm dropping my things. I've got it set so it'll only drop 20 of these, and if my score goes up, oh cool, I got score, hooray! And it's playing some sounds and music as we go along. We don't hear it right now. And once I hit that, we have that 5-second transition from green, moving to the orange screen right here, where we have that background of orange. And as you can see, we loaded the score of 60, game over, pinch to restart. And since I'm using the simulator, if I hold down my option key, I get a magic second finger, and I can either pinch in or I can pinch out. Either one works. So I'll go ahead and pinch in and release. And we have a 15-second transition right here. It's slowly going to purple. Look how pretty that is. Current score. And guess what happens? I can start clicking and having my cute little gems or blocks drop back down again. Look how amazing this is. I'm going to repeat the process. I'm just going to go really fast this time. Transition back to green. Game over, pinch to restart. We'll try pinching outwards. Again, we have that slow transition. You can see it going slowly purple because he's that long 15-second transition. Might be a bit too long for this, but it's very demoable, so you can see what's happening with that. And that's a way we can make it so we can have a nice little restart effect. Again, just a reminder, we have to decide when we're going to be ending the game. In this case, I have if I run out of blocks, so I have that called the in-game method. The in-game method works just like that, where I create a scene, I transition to it. The 5 seconds, a great rule of time on that, and then I tell it to present the scene, which goes back to the view, and it tells it to do that. I then go to my in-game scene right here. My in-game scene loads up, attaches those nodes using that parameter we assigned from there to do a string interpolation, brings it all back together. We use the hashtag selector and the @objc prefix right there, so we can make sure that we're using those methods that use Objective-C style calls to have that happen, so we can handle the pinch. You could also do this with pan, swipe, etc., or even multi-touch. We can't do multi-touch on a simulator, so that's the only problem with that. And then we restart the game, having it start back all over again. It's a great way you can have a cool new game and have a great, cool app that you can make and have some fun with. Thanks again. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Cheers.